Okay, so you want to own a gas station. You drive past one every single day. The prices are up on that big bright sign. Cars are lined up at the pumps, hundreds of gallons flowing every hour. You do the math in your head. At $3 a gallon with 10 pumps going, this place must be printing money, you think. I want a piece of that. How hard can it be? Here is where most people stop thinking. And here is exactly where this gets interesting. Because the gas station you are picturing, the one where the money just flows like fuel through a nozzle, is not the gas station that actually exists. The real business is stranger, more complicated, and far more fragile than anything you imagine standing at the pump. And the biggest twist? The fuel you are buying is almost an afterthought to the people who own the place. Let's start from the very beginning. Before you spend a dollar, you need to understand one thing. Not all gas station owners own the same thing. Walk into any gas station in America, and you might be looking at 5 completely different business arrangements. And which one you are standing in determines everything about how much money the owner makes. The first type is the fully independent owner. This person owns the land, the building, the pumps, the underground fuel tanks, and the convenience store. Everything. They buy fuel from whoever they want and keep every dollar of profit after expenses. Maximum control. Maximum risk. The second type is the franchise operator. Think of the big branded names: Shell, BP, ExxonMobil, Chevron. A franchise owner pays to use that brand name, which means paying an upfront fee that can run anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000, plus ongoing royalties on sales every single month. In exchange, they get the brand recognition, the national marketing, and a guaranteed fuel supply, but they also get strict rules about how everything looks and operates. The third type is the company-owned, company-operated station. This is when a major oil company or a large convenience chain like 7-Eleven or Circle K owns everything and pays its employees a salary to run the place. The owner is a corporation, not a person standing behind the counter. The fourth type is what is called a dealer-operated station, where the oil company owns the building and the land, but leases the operation to an independent dealer. The dealer runs the store, pays rent, and is contractually required to buy all their fuel from the landlord. They have some freedom, but they are locked in. The fifth is the lease operator. A completely separate real estate investor owns the property and charges the operator rent under what is called a triple net lease, meaning the tenant pays the rent, the property taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance on top of everything else. The real estate investor sits back and collects a check. The operator carries all the daily risk. Why does this matter? Because the answer to how much does a gas station owner make depends entirely on which of these arrangements you are in. An independent owner who owns the land in a prime location is in a fundamentally different financial position than a franchise operator paying monthly royalties on a leased property. They are in the same industry but running entirely different businesses. Let us say you decide to buy an existing gas station. You think you are buying pumps and a cash register. You are not. You are buying the land underneath the canopy. You are buying the building that houses the store. You are buying the underground storage tanks. Usually 3 of them, buried beneath the forecourt, each holding anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 gallons of flammable liquid. You are buying the fuel delivery pipes that run from those tanks up to the dispensers. You are buying the canopy structure bolted into the ground above the pumps, engineered to handle local wind loads and snow weight. You are buying the walk-in refrigerator cooler inside the store, the commercial food equipment, the security camera system, the point-of-sale terminals, and all the inventory currently sitting on the shelves. You are also buying licenses: the right to sell fuel in your state, the permit to operate a lottery terminal if one exists, the liquor license if the store sells alcohol, and the environmental permits that allow underground fuel storage on that particular piece of land. And you are buying the existing supply contracts with the fuel distributor, which can lock you into specific pricing terms and purchasing obligations whether you like those terms or not. Here is what most buyers underestimate. The physical infrastructure, those underground tanks, the fuel piping system, the dispensers, is often more valuable than the fuel itself. Installing that equipment from scratch costs hundreds of thousands of dollars and requires months of permitting. The barrier to entry is not just money, it is time, engineering, and government approval. Buying an existing station sidesteps all of that, which is why existing stations sell for between $500,000 and $25 million, depending on location, size, volume, and what comes with the deal. Let us talk about what it actually costs to get into this business. If you are leasing an existing location and taking over operations, your minimum startup is roughly $250,000 to $300,000. That covers your security deposit, your first months of rent, business licenses, initial fuel inventory, and working capital to keep the lights on before you start seeing steady revenue. If you are buying an existing station outright, land, building, business, you are looking at anywhere from $500,000 to several $1 million depending on where it is located. If you are building from the ground up, the numbers get serious fast. Land alone in a high-traffic suburban location can cost between $500,000 and $2 million. Construction of the building and canopy adds another $1 to $3 million. Underground tank installation runs from $300,000 to $750,000. After you factor in the tanks themselves, the piping, the leak detection sensors, the automatic tank gauging systems, and the environmental containment required by federal law. Equipment inside the store, the coolers, the food prep stations, the point-of-sale systems, adds another $250,000 to $1 million. Environmental permits and compliance documentation can add another $100,000 to $400,000 before you pump a single gallon total. A new ground-up station with a modern convenience store typically costs $2 million to $5 million to build, and banks know this. They scrutinize these deals closely, requiring independent feasibility studies and proof that the local market can support the volume you are projecting. They look at your debt service coverage, essentially whether the business will generate enough cash flow to pay back the loan with room to spare. Many first-time buyers find that getting financing approved is harder than finding the right location. Now let us follow the fuel before it arrives at your station, because understanding the supply chain tells you a lot about why the margins are so thin. It starts at an oil field. Crude oil is pumped out of the ground and transported by pipeline or tanker ship to a refinery. At the refinery, it goes through a process that converts raw crude into finished products: regular unleaded gasoline, premium gasoline, diesel fuel. Those finished products then travel through pipelines to regional storage terminals, which the industry simply calls the rack. At the rack, your fuel is loaded onto a tanker truck, the big 18-wheeler you see pulling into stations at night, which carries roughly 8,000 to 10,000 gallons per delivery to your underground tanks. That whole journey has costs at every step: crude oil pricing, refining overhead, pipeline tariffs, tanker labor costs, and fuel. All of it lands on your doorstep before you sell a single gallon. How you buy that fuel depends on whether you are a branded or unbranded operator. A branded dealer, one who operates under a major oil company's name, buys fuel at what is called the dealer tank wagon price, set by the refiner or distributor. The branded price includes a premium for the national marketing support, the proprietary additive packages in the fuel, and guaranteed supply priority if there is a regional shortage. In exchange, you are locked into buying exclusively from that supplier, often for 10 to 15 years. An unbranded dealer buys fuel on the open market at the rack price, which is publicly reported every day by pricing agencies and tends to be lower than the branded price. The trade-off is volatility. Rack prices swing with global oil markets. And during a regional refinery outage or supply disruption, unbranded dealers are the first to lose access to fuel. The branded dealers supplied first. Neither arrangement is obviously better. One trades flexibility for stability. The other trades stability for a slightly lower cost. Here is the part that surprises almost everyone. When the pump reads $3.11 per gallon, you might assume a healthy chunk of that flows to the station owner. It does not start with crude oil. At current prices, crude represents roughly 60% of what you are paying at the pump. That is about $1.86 out of every $3.11 gallon that goes straight to the oil market before anyone even touches it. Refining and processing adds about 9%, roughly 28 cents a gallon. Then come the taxes. The federal government charges a flat 18.4 cents per gallon on gasoline, no matter what the price is. On top of that, every state adds its own tax. California charges 89.3 cents per gallon in combined state taxes. Illinois is close behind at 84.8 cents. Even lower tax states like Texas charge around 40 cents. The average American pays somewhere between 50 and 60 cents per gallon in combined state and federal taxes. That money goes directly to government, not to the station owner. Distribution and freight adds another 11%, roughly 34 cents per gallon, to cover the pipelines, terminals, and truck deliveries. Then come credit card fees. Every time a customer swipes a card, and about 85% of fuel purchases are made with plastic, the payment network charges the station owner a percentage of the gross sale, typically between 1.5 and 3.5%. At $3.11 per gallon, that works out to about 8 cents per gallon going straight to Visa or MasterCard or the bank that issued the card. Add all that up and what is left, what the station actually keeps before paying any of its own operating costs, averages around 30 to 35 cents per gallon in gross margin. According to data from the Oil Price Information Service published in January of 2025, the national average fuel gross margin was 35.7 cents per gallon. And after paying for labor, electricity, maintenance, and everything else, the net profit on fuel is closer to 10 to 15 cents per gallon. Sell 100,000 gallons a month, and you make $10,000 to $15,000 in net fuel profit. Before the loan payment, before property taxes, before anything. Meanwhile, the bank that issued the card the customer used to buy, that fuel earns more per gallon in swipe fees than the station owner earns in actual profit. That is not an exaggeration. It is the math. There is a reason gas station owners are obsessed with what their competitors charge. Research consistently shows that a difference of as little as 3 to 5 cents per gallon is enough to divert the majority of price-sensitive drivers to a competing station. Fuel is one of the most price-transparent products in retail. You can read the competitor's price from your car 2 seconds before you decide whether to turn in, so when one station drops its price to pull traffic, the stations nearby have to respond. Margins shrink across the whole corridor. Nobody wants to be the station charging more, so everybody charges less. This dynamic, called a price war, is common in markets where 2 or 3 stations sit within half a mile of each other. Economists have documented an interesting pattern in fuel pricing called rockets and feathers. When wholesale prices go up, retail prices rise fast, like a rocket. When wholesale prices fall, retail prices drop slowly, like a feather drifting down. Station owners push prices up immediately when costs rise because they cannot afford to absorb the loss. But they hold prices higher for longer when costs fall, because they are trying to recoup the margins they lost during the previous spike. This is rational, not malicious. It is what thin margin businesses do to survive. Now, here is the part that changes everything. Fuel gets customers to your property. The store is where you actually make money. According to National Association of Convenience Stores data, fuel sales made up 67.3% of total convenience store revenue in 2023. But that same fuel contributed only 38.6% of total gross profit. The inside store, coffee, snacks, drinks, food, lottery tickets, made up 35% of revenue but generated 61.2% of total gross profit. Think about what that means. More than 6 out of every $10 of profit at the average American gas station comes from inside the building, not from the pumps. The reason is margins. Fuel gross margin runs around 11%. Inside store gross margin runs between 30 and 50% depending on the category. A can of soda costs the station owner roughly 40 cents and sells for $2. That is a margin of over 75%. A bag of chips that costs 25 cents wholesale retails for $1.50. Cigarettes carry thin margins because the manufacturers control the pricing, but they drive enormous foot traffic from regular buyers who come in multiple times a week. And then there is tobacco's replacement, energy drinks, premium coffee, and prepared food. Let us get very specific about something. A cup of brewed coffee costs the station owner roughly 23 cents in beans, the cup, and the lid. It sells for between $3 and $5 depending on size and the market. That is a gross margin of over 90%. Even after factoring in the cost of the machine, electricity, and the occasional spilled pot, the net margin on coffee is around 40%. Now compare that to a standard vehicle fill-up. 12 gallons of fuel, at a retail price of $3.11, totals $37.32 in revenue. The gross pool margin, the station's cut before operating costs, is about 30 cents per gallon, so roughly $3.60 on the whole transaction. The credit card swipe fee on that transaction takes back about 82 cents. Operating expenses eat more. The net to the station owner on that entire fill-up is somewhere around 40 to 60 cents. A single cup of coffee generates more bottom-line profit than pumping 12 gallons of gasoline. This is why chains like Wawa, Sheetz, and Casey's have spent the last 2 decades building serious food programs inside their stores. Casey's, based in Iowa, now operates one of the largest pizza chains in the United States by store count inside its gas stations. Wawa has built a cult following around its made-to-order hoagies. These companies understood early that the food is the business. The fuel is the advertisement. Smart operators do not stop at the coffee machine. The automatic car wash is one of the highest margin additions a station can make. A tunnel wash with automated equipment runs with minimal labor, and the gross profit margin regularly exceeds 50%. Membership programs, where customers pay a fixed monthly fee for unlimited washes, have transformed the economics of car wash operations, creating predictable recurring revenue on top of walk-in traffic. ATM machines installed inside the store earn the operator a commission on every transaction, typically between $1 and $2 per withdrawal. This requires no labor, no inventory, and minimal maintenance. State lottery terminals, in states where convenience stores are licensed to sell tickets, generate steady foot traffic from regular players, and the station earns a commission on every ticket sold, typically 5 to 6%. When a station sells a winning ticket for a major jackpot, the resulting local media attention drives a documented spike in ticket sales at that location for weeks afterward. Modern stations are also adding electric vehicle charging stations. A Level 2 commercial charger costs around $3,500 in hardware, plus another $2,500 for installation. A DC fast charger, the kind that can add significant range in 20 to 40 minutes, runs $35,000 to $140,000 for the hardware alone, plus another $20,000 to $80,000 for the electrical infrastructure to support it. The federal government's National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, funded at $5 billion, covers up to 80% of eligible installation costs for stations on designated highway corridors, which has made the economics considerably more attractive. And the appeal for station operators is not just the charging revenue, it is the dwell time. A driver charging for 30 minutes buys coffee, eats a sandwich, and browses the store. That is the longest, most profitable customer visit a gas station can capture. Revenue is not profit. And in this business, the gap between those two numbers is enormous. Labor is the biggest line item. A 24-hour station needs multiple employees per shift, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. The average convenience store employs roughly 20 people, and the industry average wage has been rising steadily. Payroll, including all the taxes, benefits, and overtime, is typically the largest single operating expense. Utilities are significant and often overlooked. Those walk-in beer coolers run continuously, 24 hours a day. The outdoor canopy lighting stays on all night. The air conditioning in summer and heat in winter for a 3,000 square foot building with constantly opening doors adds up fast. The average convenience store pays around $23,000 per year in electricity alone. Credit card fees, as mentioned, are not just a fuel problem. They apply to every transaction in the store as well. Equipment maintenance is relentless. Dispensers break. Underground sensors need calibration. Cooler compressors fail. Point-of-sale systems need updates. The physical infrastructure of a gas station is under constant mechanical stress. Then there is theft. Drive-offs, where a driver fills up and leaves without paying, still happen despite prepay requirements in most states. Internal theft from employees is an ongoing challenge. Card skimming devices, where criminals attach illegal readers to fuel dispensers to steal customer card data, have cost the industry hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud liability and equipment replacement costs. And insurance. A gas station carries general liability, property insurance, and something most businesses never need to think about: pollution liability insurance. Because if something goes wrong underground, the cleanup is your problem. This is the part of the gas station business that keeps owners up at night. Buried beneath every gas station are steel or fiberglass tanks holding thousands of gallons of gasoline. The EPA requires these tanks to be double-walled, a tank inside a tank, with sensors in the space between the walls to detect any leakage. They require automatic tank gauging systems that continuously monitor fuel levels for unexplained losses. They require vapor recovery systems on the dispensers to capture fumes. They require statistical software that cross-references daily sales and delivery volumes to flag any discrepancy that might indicate a slow leak. All of that compliance costs money. A basic leak detection system for a standard 3-tank station runs between $3,000 and $8,000. Upgrading older tanks with corrosion protection can cost $10,000 to $48,000. Installing new tanks from scratch runs into the hundreds of thousands. But the bigger risk is what happens if something leaks anyway. As of March 2026, the EPA has recorded over 583,000 confirmed releases from underground storage tank systems across the United States. More than 54,000 sites still need cleanup. The average cleanup cost per site is approximately $154,000, and that is the average. Contamination that reaches the groundwater, which is the drinking water source for nearly half of all Americans, can push that number into the millions. Groundwater remediation requires drilling monitoring wells, installing pump and treat systems, and conducting quarterly laboratory testing that can run for years. And here is the critical detail. When you buy a gas station, you are potentially buying the environmental liability that came with it. Contamination in the soil from a previous owner's leak becomes your responsibility once you own the property. Environmental assessments before purchase are not optional, they are essential. And even a clean assessment is not a guarantee. Some contamination is simply not detectable until a tank is dug up. The federal government maintains a trust fund for cleaning up leaking tanks when no responsible owner can be found, funded by a 1/10 cent tax on every gallon sold in America. But that fund's resources are nowhere near enough to address all 54,000 sites still waiting for cleanup. The liability does not disappear. It sits in the ground until someone pays to remove it. Strip away everything. The brand, the store, the coffee program, car wash, and the single most important factor in whether a gas station succeeds is where it sits on a map. A station on a high-traffic highway corridor with 10,000 cars passing per day operates in a fundamentally different business than one tucked into a quiet neighborhood street. Volume drives everything in this model. More cars passing means more drivers pulling in. More drivers pulling in means more fuel sold. More fuel sold means more people walking into the store. Professional developers look at 5 things when evaluating a site. The first is average daily traffic, the number of vehicles passing the location per day. State transportation departments publish this data publicly. A location on a primary arterial road carrying 30,000 to 50,000 vehicles per day is worth significantly more than one carrying 5,000. The second is access. How easy is it to get in and out? A physical concrete median down the center of the road that blocks left turns can cut your customer capture rate by half. Drivers do not make U-turns to fill up with gas. If they cannot enter and exit easily, they go to the next station. The third is corner orientation. Corner locations at signalized intersections where traffic stops. Give drivers time to notice the price board and make the turn decision. Mid-block locations on a 45-mile-per-hour road are harder to enter, less visible, and capture less traffic. The fourth is competition density. How many stations already exist within a 1 to 3 mile radius? In an oversaturated market, you are not just splitting customers, you are splitting profit margin as every operator drops prices to compete. The fifth is what surrounds the site. A station adjacent to a highway on-ramp, a large employer, a suburban residential neighborhood, or a cluster of fast food restaurants generates natural, consistent traffic from commuters and local customers. A station on an isolated commercial strip with no anchor traffic generators relies entirely on fuel price to pull customers in. Get location right, and almost everything else is manageable. Get it wrong, and no amount of operational excellence fixes the problem. Let us run through the numbers on a real, functioning station. Take a mid-sized suburban branded station. It pumps 100,000 gallons of fuel per month. Average retail price is $3.11 per gallon. Gross fuel revenue, $311,000. After paying the wholesale cost of fuel, the gross profit on fuel is $30,000. That is the 30-cent per gallon margin, times 100,000 gallons. The convenience store brings in $150,000 in monthly sales. At a gross margin of 35%, that produces $52,500 in gross profit. Add in a car wash and ATM commissions totaling $4,500. Total combined gross profit, $87,000 on $461,000 in total monthly revenue. Now the expenses. Staff wages for a 20-person team run about $18,500 per month. Credit card processing fees on 85% of transactions at a 2.2% average rate consume $8,619. Utilities run $6,200. Equipment maintenance and repairs add $3,800. Property insurance and pollution liability coverage costs $2,400. Local property and licensing taxes add $1,800. Inventory spoilage and theft rounded out at $1,200. Total operating expenses, $42,519. That leaves an operating profit of $44,481 before the loan payment and depreciation. Subtract $25,000 per month for the debt service on the property loan, and $8,500 in depreciation on the tanks and equipment. Net operating income, $10,981 per month. That is on $461,000 in monthly gross revenue. Less than 3 cents of every dollar in sales flows to the bottom line. And here is the critical detail hidden in those numbers. If that store's inside gross profit of $52,500 simply disappeared, if the store were not there, the fuel gross profit of $30,000 alone would not cover the station's $42,500 in operating expenses. The station would lose $12,500 every single month just by pumping fuel. The store does not supplement the business. The store is the business. The top stations in America have figured something out that the struggling ones have not. The winners invest in food. Not the hot dog roller or the microwaved burrito, real food. Wawa operates a full made-to-order sandwich counter in every store. Sheetz has a digital ordering kiosk for customized meals. Casey's makes fresh pizza daily. These companies have accepted that they are in the restaurant business that happens to sell fuel, and they have built their stores accordingly. Prepared food margins run 50 to 60%. That changes the entire financial picture. The winners also invest in technology. Mobile apps that let customers start their fuel pump from their phone, order food while they are filling up, collect loyalty points, and receive location-specific promotions have transformed customer behavior. A driver who is linked into a loyalty app visits that station 3 to 4 times more per month than one who is not. And each additional visit is another opportunity for a high-margin inside transaction. The winners pick locations with room to expand. A station on a small lot is trapped. A station on a corner parcel with room to add a car wash bay, a larger store, or additional pump capacity can grow as the surrounding community grows. And the winners manage their break-even point obsessively. They know exactly how many gallons they need to pump per month and exactly how much inside sales they need to cover all fixed costs before they make a single dollar of profit. Every operational decision, staffing levels, store hours, product selection, is made through that lens. Here is where we land. A gas station with hundreds of cars flowing through every day and millions of dollars in annual revenue can produce a net income of somewhere between $100,000 and $500,000 per year for a well-run independent operator. The wide range reflects how dramatically location, the quality of the inside store, the ownership structure, and the operator's ability to manage costs can shift the outcome. In a good year, strong fuel volumes, stable wholesale prices, a well-run store, no equipment failures. A solid suburban station might clear $200,000 in net income on $3 to $4 million in revenue. In a bad year, a price war with a new competitor, a major equipment failure, a spike in wholesale costs that cannot be passed to consumers quickly enough, or a tank leak that triggers an environmental investigation, that same station can lose money or barely break even. The difference between a good year and a bad year can be $150,000 or more. That is the volatility you are buying when you buy a gas station. And the operators who truly succeed are not the ones who are best at selling fuel. They are the ones who understand that the fuel brings the customer, but the store makes the money. That the location determines the ceiling, but the operation determines how close you get to it. That the environmental liability buried underground is not theoretical. It's a real financial risk that needs to be priced into every acquisition. The next time you stop for fuel, look past the pump. Look at how big the coffee station is. Look at whether there is a car wash. Look at whether someone has installed electric vehicle chargers out front. Look at the store's layout, the quality of the prepared food, the length of the loyalty program sign. Because what you are actually standing inside is not a gas station. It is a retail business that uses $4 cups of coffee to pay the bills and $3 gallons of gas to fill the parking lot.